Welcome to Two Couples Coaches podcast, where certified relational life coaches Bev and Suzette guide you through the highs, lows, and in-betweens of love and relationships. Trained by Terry Real and the Relational Life Institute, Bev and Suzette help couples and individuals create deeper connections. Whether you are in a relationship that spans many years, navigating a new relationship, or simply seeking better ways to communicate, this podcast is your weekly roadmap to love, deeper connection, and relational growth. So now, please welcome the hosts of Two Couples Coaches, Bev and Suzette.
Welcome back, everyone, to our Two Couples Coaches podcast. I'm so glad to be here again with you and with you, Bev. How are you today, Bev?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We've got a great topic. Why doesn't it work?
Exactly. I apologize. I've been sick, and so my voice is very scratchy and raspy. And hope we are here talking about all things partnership and relationship and marriage. Today, we're diving into a topic that affects every single couple, the most well-intentioned ones. It affects, and it's about how we self-sabotage our own relationships, how we get in our own way, the ways we unknowingly undermine the very connection we're trying so hard to build, or the relationships that we're trying so hard to strengthen. And this is something we all do at times. Even sometimes we do it very dramatically, but sometimes we do it without even knowing it, very subtly, without even realizing it. So in English, there's a bunch of phrases to convey this kind of thing we do where we get in our own way, such as shooting yourself in the foot, digging your own grave, burning your bridges, or crashing your own party. And you come up from a different culture, Bev. Are there any kind of cultural phrases that represent this idea of how we just kind of mess things up for ourselves, this human tendency?
Right. Botching. I can't think of anything offhand, but I think you've covered most of them, and I think you give the correct impression of. I think we understand the point of how we can really self-sabotage. And what I like to tell clients is these losing strategies that we use, that we're going to talk about today, they always trip us up and they seduce you into believing you can get what you want. And I invite you, as you listen to the episode today, to think about that, how we use what we're going to talk about in more depth to really get more connection. But really what it does is this. Because what actually happens is your losing strategies commingle with your partner's, and they create patterns of unhelpful and unsuccessful communication, in essence.
Yeah, I love how the word you use, like they seduce you into thinking. These strategies that we do are very seductive, that we do think,
Right.
oh, this will help. If I just do this, this will help. And it always ends up shooting us in the foot. So
And we end
before
up
we,
having the same fights again and again, the same
yeah,
patterning.
exactly. Yeah. So before we get into some of these specifics about what these losing strategies are, because they have names and we'll go into that, I just thought it would be fun to give some common scenarios that kind of describe some of these strategies and see if you can relate to any of these. So let's say you and your partner are arguing about something and you correct them with, no, that's not what happened. That's not what I said. Or, no, that's not what you did. Maybe you can relate to that scenario.
I can relate to it, and that's not terrible to say to your partner that I didn't think I said that, or that wasn't quite. But the other day I noticed my husband was trying to share a story about a trip we'd taken. And he said, I know we went away for 3 days. And I wanted to jump in and say, no, it wasn't, it was 5 days. And it sort of stopped at the tip of my tongue as I thought, it's really not important to the person who's listening. The point of his story is not how many days we went away for. It had some complete different point to it. And it was rather lovely being able to recognize that I could actually pause and take that moment instead of jumping in and correcting him and letting him lose the thread. I guess some wise adult on board and think, that's so irrelevant to the story, and it just makes one defensive when now we're arguing about it. Was it 3 days? Was it 5 days? And it's
Yeah.
completely irrelevant.
Such a common strategy though to interrupt and correct our partners. Oh no, that's not right. That's not right. It's a very common scenario. What are some other scenarios of these kind of strategies, these seductive strategies that we use, Bev?
What I often hear, and it comes across as so innocent until one highlights it, is the people who are trying to people please. Now, people pleasing is kind of a way of controlling. I need you to be a certain way so that I actually feel good about myself. But it comes across in, but I'm doing it for you. You know, I'm telling you this to help you, but actually it's about me. So if I think of an example, a mother was telling me recently about an adult daughter with two adult daughters. She said to the one, I don't want you to ask the other one to pay for you on a ride they were going on. And I was thinking, these are two adult daughters who could actually have the conversation. And if the one wanted to pay for her sister, that's all okay, right? But the mom was working so hard really to have the one not pay for her. And so she would feel bad, the mom would feel bad. Oh my God, my daughter paid for the other daughter. And as I said, we're talking about adults here. So that kind of thing, it's masked as, oh no, I don't want my daughter to pay. It's for her goodness, but it's really for the mom to feel calm.
Yeah, a lot of this kind of underlying, like, it's really subtle manipulation, but I think there's a lot of that happens in relationships. So some other just really common scenarios that maybe people can relate to is getting frustrated that your partner isn't doing things the way you want them done, and so you kind of drop little hints, or you get frustrated with them directly when they're not complying. Maybe that's a scenario you can relate to. Or you bring up something, or your partner brings up something and it doesn't go well, and so then you just get quiet and kind of leave the room. You stop trying.
I'd like to add coldly quiet. So that the message is, you'll know that I'm upset and you better come running after me.
Yeah. So maybe you can relate to some of these kind of just very common scenarios. Any other really common scenarios that come to your mind, Bev?
Let me think. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was with a client today, also with an adult daughter, and she was kind of frozen. These strategies that we're going to speak about, they can also freeze you into either jumping in and we're needing to fix, right? Or to freeze you and you don't do anything. So this mother, she's damned if she does and she's damned if she doesn't. But she's really afraid to invite her daughter back into the family, also an adult daughter. So she freezes and she doesn't do anything. And the daughter feels, you see, you're not welcoming. And the mom thinks, but I am. I sent a little text and I invited you, but you didn't respond. So what I wanted to say was the mom's afraid of something bigger happening, and the big already has happened. When we discussed what could go wrong, what could further explode, it's already happened. But I get it. It's very scary. It's very scary to do something differently from the way you've been doing it. And I wanted to add that all these strategies that we're going to speak about come with a certain energy. And that we'll get into later, won't we? About the energy that goes behind them, and can we change that?
Yes, I love that. I love that. So some of the other scenarios that came to my mind were just bringing up things from years and years ago. This is so common in couples, right? Like you start into one topic and then you or your partner starts to bring in things from, well, 5 years ago, or last year, the last time this happened. Such a common scenario. Also, another common scenario that came to my mind was just snarkiness. One person kind of has a snarky tone, and then the other person has a snarky tone. That's something I see a lot. Really, kind of these subtle kind of jabs with
Right.
snark. These are just some examples, and that maybe you can relate to, like, oh, I noticed those scenarios, those happen in my relationship. And this is
Right.
kind of just a way to introduce these strategies that are so seductive, and we'll get into them. Anything else you wanted to say about that, Bev, before we dive into them?
Yes. You was talking about, bringing things up from the past. I always call it from the dinosaurs, and it usually comes up with speaking in a binary, like you never, you always. And one beautiful way, and we'll get more into what do we do when our partners talk to us like that, that you never will always invite, but we went away last month. What do you mean we never go away, right? It'll always invite the opposing opinion. But what I wanted to say is that if the partner hearing that, oh, sorry, got a hair, the partner hearing that can ground him or herself and say, I hear that you feel we don't go away often, and you're right, sometimes we could maybe go away a bit more often. Then that never, you always, if the partner can give it back, we'll speak more about that. It can really change that losing strategy into something that can bring you closer.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't we start into let's start naming these losing strategies
All right.
and what they are. And I love that we can name them. I think it's easier when we can name these strategies that we're doing, that all of us tend to do, that are so common, that shoot us in the foot. It helps us to identify them more. So let's pick one to start with. There's five. This comes from Terry Real. He has named these five losing strategies. Other people, like Dr. Gottman, he uses different names for them, the four horsemen, but they're similar. It just goes to show that no matter how you name them, there's these things that we do as humans that are not helpful in our relationships. And so why don't we come back, and after the break, we'll talk about we'll name these specific losing strategies. So you are watching Two Couples Coaches on Bold Brave TV, and we will be back in 2 minutes after this sponsor break.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Hi, welcome back. So we're talking today about losing strategies that we all engage in to call our partners back into connection with us, but which never work. So let's dive in right away and give some examples. So the first one I'd like to speak to you about is the strategy of needing to be right. Needing to be right can be black and white thinking. Needing to be right is about objective reality. So the train leaves at 5. It doesn't leave at 5:05. That's objective. But that has no place in relationship. We often ask our clients, do you want to be right? Or would you prefer to be married? Because needing to be right means I really want to solve our differences by eradicating them. I need you to see that it's my way, actually. And we can get into an objective battle. And as at its extreme, it can look like self-righteous indignation, like you're an idiot. You really don't know anything. And once we get into that one-up position, we've really left the connection part of our relationship. Suzette, you want to give some more meat to that?
Yeah, this is, I can speak from personal experience. I love this losing strategy. It's very seductive to me personally. To correct, you remember we gave in the first segment, we gave that example of of jumping in and correcting your partner. Such a common scenario. That is needing to be right, right? Like, no, the way that I viewed it is the right way. That didn't happen. It didn't happen at that time. It didn't happen that way. So this is such a common losing strategy. Again, it's so seductive. Like, we think if we can just correct them, if we can just, like you said, eliminate the differences in our thinking, then we can be on the same page, and then we can see things the same way, and we won't have conflict. But that's just a fantasy, because you're going to see things differently. It's subjective experience, and you're going to experience things differently. So it's just such a losing strategy. It's a trap that we all fall into. If you can just see that right, then everything will be just fine. But that never works. How often do our partners say, you are so right about that? Absolutely. Never mind. What was I thinking?
I sometimes say to my clients, you see, what happened is you stepped out of your cave into the marketplace, and instead of marrying yourself, you actually married someone else who comes from a completely different perspective. And that's the challenge and the beauty of relationship. It enables us to open up to, oh, maybe there is another way.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about the second losing strategy, which is control. This is another one of my favorites. I'm really good at all of these losing strategies, Bev. How about you? So control can take a lot of different forms. We might not directly control our partners, like you have to do this and you have to do that. We might directly control them, but we might also really indirectly control them through manipulation. So tell me what your thoughts about how we try to control, how do we use this losing strategy?
So adults don't like to be controlled, don't want to be controlled, and don't need to be controlled. And I always say, marriage is actually for grown-ups, it's for adults. Children are controlled. Children don't have choice. They're looking for nurture, connection with their parents, so they have to toe the line. But your adult partner does not want to be controlled, and they'll push back. And the beauty of maybe beauty isn't the right word, but maybe there is some beauty in this. You might think that in the moment you have won this battle, you have gotten what you want, but woe betide, you will pay back. Because if you get your partner to do something that they're not so keen on, they don't want to, it'll come back to bite you. It's not a freebie. And as you said, it can be direct and it can be indirect. But the notion of controlling another human being is actually an illusion. There is a price to pay.
Yeah, and yet it's so, again, seductive. We think that we can. We think that we can control another adult, and then we find out that we can't. And I want to talk more just about the manipulative aspect of control, kind of the indirect ways we control. And we can do that through like pouting and sulking, because what we're really trying to do is make our partner kind of turn their attention to us and back down from their position or do things our way. We can be really manipulative as humans in the ways that we try to control people, and we can do it very subtly. So pouting, sulking, silence in an effort to manipulate the situation. So control and manipulation, those goes hand in hand. And they're losing strategies for that reason. Is it's never going to work out well. Nobody wants to be manipulated. People can tell when they're being manipulated. Nobody likes to be controlled. It does not work out well. It will cost the relationship. There will be a cost to the connection in the long run. Even if in the short term it works, in the long term it won't.
And manipulation gets a bad rap. It's got this negative connotation. But in essence, manipulation is a way of trying to get what you want. And especially female-bodied people tend to be more resentful on the front end and less assertive on the back end. And we want to reverse that, to bring people forward to ask clearly for what they would like. Clearly, kindly, softly, gently, and holding a kind of a soft power, if you like. But very often we think, oh no, we can get this in a different way. Sarcasm is a way of trying to get, of trying to control. I can be nasty because I'm afraid to say exactly what's on my
Yeah,
heart.
I think that summarizes all of these losing strategies, even needing to be right. They're really just kind of passive aggressive ways of communication. They're just perverse forms of communication, even needing to be right. It's like, no, I really want your validation. And control is like, it's just all these ways we're trying to get connection without really saying it. Just all these kind of perverse forms of it. So I'm
Right.
glad you brought that up.
Maybe we just want to remind people who are listening that we're talking now about the losing strategies. We will get to the winning ones, the ones that can cherish a relationship. But at the moment, we're just trying to highlight the losing ones. And notice if this is anything that you do. Notice it with kindness. Yeah, I sometimes do that.
We all do. We all do. All right, let's move on to the next one. Unbridled self-expression. Oh, this is a big one. This is such a common one. Unbridled meaning like unfiltered, just ways of expressing yourself without a lot of containment. And it can be done verbally. It can also be done through text. It could, ways of, or through email, right? Just not filtering yourself. Scream. It can be screaming, yelling. It can be just word choices. What do you want to say about this losing strategy of unbridled self-expression?
You can think of it as a bath bag. I'm going to vomit into this bag, then I'm going to give it to you. Oh, but love me at the same time while you're holding it.
Yes.
So I could just say whatever I like. And you know what? I didn't even think for 1 minute how it landed on you, how you received that, what that was like for you. This is all about me and my need to get it out. And then, Suzette, I often hear, oh, but psychology and therapy encourages you. Say what you want. Don't hold it back. And there's a truth in that, to say what you want and to say it with awareness that there is somebody else on the other end of the seesaw. It's not about just saying it in the nastiest, most angry way that you can. It's a way that's saying it that the other person can receive it. And this is where we'll talk about you always. What does Terry say? People come in, they're essentialists. My husband always. We never. And to try and take an adult perspective and, is that true? Is that how you feel? It feels like we never do.
Yeah, less black and white, more just kind of moderate, not as excessive in our language and tone, very contained so that the other person can hear it. And it is, again, such a fantasy that if we can just unload all of the angst that we're feeling, then somehow they'll just be able to understand us and
And
know.
I love what sorry,
Go ahead.
you said earlier about bringing back all the past history.
Mm-hmm.
And really, if we can be specific, today at 10 o'clock, this happened, and this is how I felt. That's a lot more powerful.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. The kitchen sink approach of let me just throw all my hurts in, that is definitely part of unbridled self-expression. Again, it's unbridled, it's uncontained, it's too excessive, it's not specific. All right, let's look at our the next
Fourth
one, which is retaliation. You want to say some things about retaliation as a losing strategy?
Yeah, this is really a perverse form of communication and trying to get another person to experience your feelings. It's, I'm going to hurt you in a way that you will know how you have hurt me. So you sometimes hear, parents might say, I'm going to give you a hiding so you will know not to do that again. And people don't learn their lessons from hurtful ways of doing things. I'll take this poison and hope you die. It just doesn't work. We sometimes talk about offending from the victim position. I am your victim. A physical victim is a person who's being held hostage, who has no freedom of movement. A psychological victim is somebody who feels they are being controlled by a bigger force that they have no control over. And is that true? Is that person a psychological victim? Is that true that I can't speak my mind? And yes, sometimes it is true and sometimes it is scary. What can we do about that?
Yeah. And the problem with feeling that is then that you feel entitled to hurt from that victimhood, right? And retaliate, tit for tat, revenge. It can be very direct, it can be very indirect. So we'll talk more about the losing strategies when we come back. You are watching Two Couples Coaches on Bold Brave TV, and we will be back after this sponsor break.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality? But it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating. Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hi, welcome back. So we were just wrapping up on our fourth losing strategy, 4 out of 5, retaliation, where we want to hurt our partner. We forget that it's somebody we love, and we want to hurt them in a way that we feel we have intentionally been hurt. And excuse me, we just wanted to remind you that can be direct. We can rage, or indirect. We can be passive aggressive. Passive aggressive is like if we'll agree to do something, but it'll come with a coldness or, yeah, we'll go to that restaurant tonight if that's where you want to go, but I'm not going to talk to you. So that is retaliation. And Suzette, would you like to bring us up into the last one?
Yeah, so the last losing
My
strategy
favorite.
is withdrawal. And withdrawal can take a lot of different forms. It can be emotional, physical. It can be, you can actually leave, but you can also mentally leave. So it can take a lot of different forms. And it can be just refusing to engage in the relationship in some form, whether it's refusing to have conversations, refusing to engage in physical connection. There's a lot of different ways to withdraw, but withdrawal can be done responsibly because everybody needs to take a break sometimes, or we need space. But it can also be done irresponsibly. Do you want to talk about that, Bev?
Yeah. Well, the responsible distance taking. So if you're going to physically withdraw, you could just slam out the house, right? But responsible distance taking, and we'll speak more about this in the cherishing and the winning strategies, is saying to your partner, you know what? I need to take a break. Now, but this is about me. I'm going to say something that I don't want to say. Let's take a pause. I'll be back in 20 minutes. And then after 20 minutes, to either send them a text, you know what, I need a little bit more time, or come out. There's the rules that we'll go into where maybe leave the topic for 24 hours before you re-engage. But what I wanted to add to the way people withdraw is that sometimes people withdraw from a certain aspect of the relationship. It can be sexual. I'm not going to have sex with you until. I'm not going with you on any of your dinner parties. Or they can really withdraw from the whole relationship. I'm not speaking to you until, and I'm moving out. I'm not living here until. What it isn't, and some people confuse this, withdrawal is not an acceptance. If I withdraw and I don't engage with you on this topic, it doesn't mean I accept your version of things. And that is sometimes a misinterpretation of what withdrawal is what message it's trying to give.
Yeah. Absolutely. So all of these strategies, so needing to be right, control, retaliation, withdrawal, unbridled self-expression, they're all rooted in this fantasy that somehow when we do these losing strategies that they will work to get us what we want, to get our partner's attention, to help our partner understand how we're feeling, how hurt we are, how frustrated we are. And we keep hoping that if we try these things that it'll work, and they never do. They always invite escalation. They always invite more losing strategies, right? If I'm trying to be right, it's going to be met with more of needing to be right or unbridled self-expression. It's just this cascading escalation of more and more of these unhelpful strategies. Any thoughts about these fantasies, Bev, and why we learn that somehow these will work even though they never do?
Right. So we always tell our clients, right, Suzette, that the people themselves are not our clients. What's actually the actual client is this commingling, this collision, if you like, of these losing strategies. We call it stance, dance, dance. This happens, this gets triggered, and that happens. So it could be relentless pursuit. I was very good going to bed, and the more I would want my husband to respond, and anytime he might doze off, kick him, wake him up, and we carry on talking about this conversation. The more I would do that, the more he would withdraw. The more he would withdraw, the more I would start pursuing him. And it was such a frustrating exercise for both of us until somebody pointed our patterning out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so lovely to know that you can change your patterning and actually get more of what you want. But it needs to be highlighted. So that's what happens. These losing strategies meet each other. And as I said, they commingle and they cause havoc in communication.
Absolutely. And that pushing, that can be part of unbridled self-expression, the pushing, and we got to talk about it. We got to talk about it now, right? That's about
Yeah.
not containing yourself. So yeah, it's just important to know your own losing strategy and how it meets up with or invites your partner's losing strategy on board. So mine, control, my losing strategy is control. I go into that manipulation and direct control, needing to be right. And every time that invites my kids' defensiveness or their withdrawal, or my husband's defensiveness or his withdrawal. And so then we're stuck in that dance. So that's why you're right. It's so important to know your go-to losing strategy, be able to name it and identify it.
Some couples have the same. Sorry.
Keep going.
Some couples have the same losing strategy. They could be two rages and then they're off to the races. It just escalates. They can both withdraw and they don't know how to come back and do the repair afterwards, which is, of course, essential.
Yep.
To be able to move.
That brings us into a good a question that I often hear from clients, and that I see in social media also. And they may not call them losing strategies, but they might say, well, my partner keeps doing this. Maybe my partner keeps yelling. My partner keeps withdrawing. My partner keeps screaming, whatever. My partner is unbridled. They won't stop their pattern. So what do I do? This is a very common question of my partner. I know my partner's losing strategy, right? It's always easier to see our partner's losing strategy and not our own. My partner is doing their losing strategy, so I can't, I can't do anything except for keep engaging in my own losing strategy. So what are your thoughts about this question of if your partner's engaging in their losing strategy, what do you do?
Right. So I always say you guys are entitled to your losing strategies, but not at the same time. So if one of you can stay grounded, so, okay, I see this one's losing it. It's a good day for you. It's not a great day for your partner, and it's a so-so day for the relationship. So when your partner's losing it, you don't have to engage and choose door A like you always do. You can make a concerted effort. This time I'm going to choose door B and I'm going to be quiet. Or I'm going to let him rage, or I'm going to ask him maybe, is there anything I can do to help you right now? And that's not easy. It's easy said and it's easy to talk about. It's lovely when we're not triggered. It's not easy to do in the moment. And we'll get to, well, how do we actually use these strategies in the heat of the moment when we really don't want to be using the strategies? We do want to kick out and we do want to hurt. And that is the beauty of this work.
I think it's so easy to put a target on your partner's back. Like, oh, there you go again, you're withdrawing, or there, look, that's unbridled self-expression, or you're so controlling. But really put the laser focus back on yourself. What am I doing in response to that? Well, I'm getting snarky in response to that. I'm making passive aggressive remarks and I'm retaliating this tit for tat. So yeah, I think if you can just identify what you do in response to your partner's losing strategy, because it's probably a different losing strategy or the same one. And like you said, choose something else. Choose to stay grounded and not go into your go-to losing strategy.
Remember, your partner's not your enemy. The partner's the person you chose to live with. So how are we going to make this work? Because it's not easy. So you were mentioning to me about the seesaw. To remember that a relationship is like a seesaw. And in fact, I used this with a client today. I said, you're asking your partner to come down, but you're forgetting that you can actually push up. You have agency to change the patterning and the dance in your relationship.
Absolutely. I have to remember that all the time. And I have to be like, let me work on my own controlling losing strategy right now. I'm going to work on that as a way to change the system instead of just trying to get my partner or my kids to change. So we've talked about a lot about the losing strategies. Let's talk about, those are the don'ts. Let's talk about some of the do's. And we might do a whole different episode sometime about the winning strategies, but we're just going to name kind of briefly, instead of these losing strategies, what can you do in those moments? So let's talk about the do's and the don'ts of losing strategy. Do you want to start?
Sure. It's so easy to complain about what we're not getting. But if you think about under every complaint is actually a request. So let's say you never take the garbage out before 9 in the evening. To just say, do you think before we go to bed every night you could take the garbage out, please? And usually our partners are so happy to give that. It would just make it easier for me. And it would be so comfortable for me if you could do that. I remember one day my husband saying to me, when you stack the dishwasher or you wash dishes, could you see that the blade of the knives is turned down? I said, huh? Yeah. It's like, okay, never thought about it. So not my family of origin thinking, but that's what you want, I'll do it. And promptly went and washed dishes with the knives sticking up again. And I got some snarky remark. And I said to my husband, right, I really want to do this because it didn't mean anything to me whether the blades were up or down. I really want to do this, but I might need you to help remind me that it's important to you. And just having said that to him, I remembered, and I know now, he likes the knives, the blade down. No problem. But that's okay. That might seem a simple example of something that I can be generous in that. I can give him what he wants.
And what I think when it comes to the losing strategy of needing to be right, so instead of needing to be right and connect, something you can do instead in the moment is just listen to your partner's experience and keep yourself from interjecting, and don't worry about whether what they're saying is accurate or not, or if it matches with your subjective reality. So that's just an easy do and don't. Like don't try to be right. Just listen. Any other quick do's and don'ts, Bev, before we
I
take
just
another?
want to highlight that again, and we'll get back to that. That idea of what is your partner trying to convey in terms of their experience. Be curious about the experience and not about the facts. And when you feel that you need to maybe control your partner, I really need you to take better care of your health, to turn that around and say, I'm really worried about your health. Would you be willing to go to the gym, go on a program, lose weight? And I'm happy to maybe come with you or learn how to cook differently, to offer your support for the change you'd like to see.
I love that. All right, we'll talk more about this. You are watching Two Couples Coaches on Bold Brave TV. We'll be back in 2 minutes after this sponsor break.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hi, we're back for wrapping up now. So what we'd like to invite you to take away from today is that when you recognize some of these patterns that you might be, these losing strategies that you might use, is firstly, there's nothing that harshness does that loving kindness won't do better for yourself. Okay, I do that, and maybe I'd like to change that, stop it, do it less, as well as for your partner. To remember that your partner is human with their human flaws, and that kindness will go a long way to make change and deepen connection. Ask more clearly for what it is you want without a whole speech. If it can be a line or two, it'll be taken in much more clearly. To put resentment on the back end and loving assertiveness on the front end. That's not to say you should give up resentment completely, and that's where coaches and therapists can help you, because you can think of resentment like a wagon that you carry in to your relationship. It'll kind of keep pulling you out. If you're coming in with that resentment all the time, it'll be heavy. And I certainly haven't met any mind readers. So as I said, please ask clearly if you can for what you want. What do you suggest, Suzette? What would you like the listeners to take away today?
I think just having a name for a losing strategy. I hope people will take away the names: control, unbridled self-expression, needing to be right, retaliation, withdrawal, and being able to identify your go-to, your favorite losing strategy. We all have them, no shame. It's just part of being human. So if you want to learn more about them and be able to get better at identifying them and seeing them in yourself, because sometimes it's really hard to see your own losing strategy. We can see our partners, we can't see our own. We have some book recommendations for you and shows and things that might help you with this. So The New Rules of Marriage by Terry Real is a book that talks about the losing strategies. So that's one recommendation. Also, if you want to kind of see it, but with different language, any of the Gottman books that talk about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, different name, but similar behaviors, different names, but you might be able to see yourself in some of the descriptions of those. What about you, Bev? What are your recommendations?
I would recommend some humor. You'll see all of them show up in Everybody Loves Raymond, in Friends. In fact, we might show you some of these clips in other episodes to see exactly how they show up. And laughter is always a good way to see what we're actually doing.
Mm-hmm. I recently was watching, there's a show on Netflix called The 4 Seasons, and it's about couples, these different couples. And because I've been thinking about the losing strategies, you can see them so clearly: the control, the withdrawing, the snarky, the unbridled self-expression with the snarkiness, and the, not containing, and the just so interesting. So just another, if you want to be able to see these things in couples, TV is a great way to see losing strategies in movies.
Absolutely. So I think as a go-to for what we want to take away tonight is things that you can do. Firstly, maybe try and notice which are your top 2 losing strategies that you're aware of, and maybe look at what you think your partners are, and you can maybe have a conversation around that and see how you'd like to change that.
Yeah. Even ask your partner, which of these do I do on my worst day? Again, you may not do these every day, and you may have multiple. That is not uncommon. You may have a 2-step thing where you do one losing strategy, and when that doesn't work, you do something else. Like you might do unbridled self-expression, and when that doesn't, withdraw. Or you might do control, and when that doesn't work, you withdraw. So just really trying to understand yourself in this and your patterns so that you can change your part.
Right. These have been the show notes for those who want to go over the 5 losing strategies again.
I don't know. We could probably put them. We'll see about that. But
we'll revisit them and they'll come
Yeah.
up again.
Yes,
Okay.
we will definitely talk about them often. So let's leave you with this quote by Terry Real. He says, anyone can behave with skill and integrity when their partner is doing the same. What makes us grown-ups is the capacity to remain skillful even when our partners act like full-fledged lunatics. And I love that. I think that speaks to the losing strategies, right? Even when your partner is doing their losing strategy, being an adult is staying grounded and not going into your losing strategy.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on Two Couples Coaches here on Bold Brave TV. We're live every Wednesday at 12 Eastern Time. You can also find us on all major podcast and video platforms. We'd love to hear from you. Send us your questions, your comments, your suggestions of topics to twocouplescoaches@gmail.com, and that's spelled out TWO, Two Couples Coaches. You can follow us on social media and YouTube, Suzette Halterman and Bev Ehrlich, and visit our individual websites, which is in the episode descriptions.
And if you've ever asked yourself, how do we make this relationship stronger, healthier, and more fulfilling? This podcast is for you. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time. And please be kind to yourself and your partner this week.
Thanks, Bev.
This has been Two Couples Coaches with your hosts, Bev and Suzette. Tune in each week as Bev and Suzette share expert insights, have heart-to-heart conversations with guests, answer listener questions, and dive into the challenges and joys of building a life together. Because in relationships, just like in life, growth happens when you show up, stay curious, and keep evolving together. Wednesdays, 12 noon Eastern, on the Bold Brave TV network, powered by B2 Studios.